Welcome on in, golf fans. It's your boy Gsluke here with our DFS and betting preview for this week's PGA Championship. Gonna get you guys ready for all of your exposure. And first off, a breakdown of the golf course and some of the key stats and comps that I'm using to identify my top plays. And then afterwards, we're gonna focus on my top pieces of exposure, both from the DFS and betting side of things, to go out there and give you an idea of exactly how I'm attacking this slate. And we head into this major with a little bit of a heater going on. We had the JT outright a few weeks back, also that near takedown a few weeks back in DFS. So the only thing that could improve upon that would be to go out here and make this major championship an even better one for our exposure. So I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be an epic field, an epic golf course that we have at our hands here. And we're going to start it off with, first off, a look at the golf course and what exactly you should be looking for in your top plays. I'll leave a link to my full course breakdown in the description, but this golf course is extremely lengthy, and since the last time we saw it, it is 75 yards longer. On top of that, you have a lot of rain in the area on Monday and Tuesday, which is going to make this golf course even longer than it typically is. And from the approach profile, you're going to see a lot of shots from 175 yards and out. During the course breakdown, we broke that down over 7 shots from 175 to 200, which is almost double what you see out there on tour. So it's 175 to 200. Even this 200 plus yard range is going to be utilized a lot more than what you typically see. And then from the off the tee angle, we're looking at some driving distance metrics, and it's not just carry distance, ball speed, also driving distance we're incorporating as well. And this is a golf course where if you're long off the tee, you're going to see a distinct advantage, which is going to be even more so the case with the kind of conditions for this week. I'm looking at bogey avoidance at a difficult track. It's a major championship kind of test, so that is always a key stat to look at. Par 5 scoring is where a lot of your birdie production is going to have to come from. In terms of the putting, they are very difficult green complexes. You've had players that aren't the best putters find success around here because it's hard to make putts, period. But if you want to look at anything, you could look at form and then some overseeded putting. You do have poatrivolous overseeded surfaces around the green, not the biggest factor, but it is a major championship, so you can't completely ignore that category. It's just towards the bottom in terms of the importance. And then where the comp courses, we've got 3 that really stand out. The PGA Championship last year at Valhalla was a very soft PGA Championship, so I think that that'll be very similar to what we get the first few days this year. Kiwa Islands was the other major championship where we had overseeded greens, and then TPC Sawgrass, the same kind of agronomy as what you have for this event, and though it's a different look, one's a swamp, one's in the woodlands up there in the Carolinas, but they have a similar kind of stat profile in terms of your winners and top 5 finishers. So those are some comp courses, some stats you can use to identify your top plays. I used it for my modeling to identify those top 5, top 20 values, and over there in Bet the Number, you can take all of this weighting, all these key stats, and build it out exactly how you want, because you may have a take that's slightly different on the golf course than I do. You can take bits and pieces of what I'm incorporating, incorporate your own little twist on top of that on Bet the Number, and get the exact kind of player pool that you're looking for this event. So make sure to check out Bet the Number if you guys haven't already. But now that we know what to look for in players, it's a little bit of a Bombers Fest, a Long Iron Fest, maybe some overseeded putting stats. Let's find the top pieces of exposure for the major. First up, we've got ourselves Bryson DeChambeau, who has been on an absolute heater there on the LIV Tour every single week, finishing in the first round lead the last 3 events. It has been the 36-hole leader. I was going to say 54, but a little bit different over there in the LIV Tour, heading into the final round, the last 3 events over there. So he's been playing the best golf of anyone on that side. And if you take a look at the shots gained metrics, it's been very impressive off the tee. In fact, I don't really recall a time ever seeing somebody gaining over 2 strokes in any category. And you can see it's with the off the tee play, which you would argue is even more impressive than the other ones, because it's not like it's holeouts that are causing Bryson to have those 2 shots gained. It is him being accurate and long off the tee. That is an elite combination that no players can match. And the other categories, approach plays, isn't that impressive, but he's been solid around the green, a really good putter over there on the LIV Tour as well. And maybe it's a little bit easier to gain strokes over that side, but he's gaining 3.5 strokes per round. So at $11,500, he's up there with the Rorys and the Scotty Schefflers. He's $2,000 cheaper than Scotty, about $700 cheaper than a Rory McIlroy. So you are getting a little bit of price reduction, which does help you further down the board. But in terms of win equity, in terms of projection here on the right side, he's not that far off a Rory or a Scotty. In fact, he's less than a 1-point difference out there from the fantasy point angle. So somebody that routinely outscores their placement position, even if he doesn't win this event, if he scores top 5 and makes 20-25 birdies out there on the event, that could be a way to get to the optimal lineup. Let's say if 8-9 9K guy goes out there and wins the event instead. So the fantasy point projection is very favorable on Bryson, and though he doesn't have a bunch of recent course history around this golf course, back in 2018, 2019, he was in contention both times he played around here, and that was before he became the player he is today. He was more of a accuracy kind of player back there in the day. He wasn't short off the tee when he first got out here on tour, but now that he's got that 2 shots gained off the tee per round, he's an even better course fit for what you have here at Quail Hollow. The way he's been putting and chipping it over the last few months is unmatched of any of these players up top. And Rory and Scotty look like unbeatable players themselves. You had Rory winning the Grand Slam, Scotty Scheffler winning by a boatload of touchdown over there at the CJ Cup. Bryson has been playing just as good a golf, so if he's going to go slightly under the radar this week, that would be music to my ears. And while it's a Monday and we're not quite sure where the projected ownership is going to come in, I'm hoping, and maybe it is wishful thinking, we'll have to see how it all shakes out, I'm hoping that he's lower owned than a Rory and a Scotty, because if he's cheaper, he's giving me that price reduction, that salary savings to use towards the bottom, and he's a little bit more of a leverage play than those other 2 players, then by all means, sign me up and I'll be using him in lineups. And O'Bear, by the way, if we're going to talk about ownership towards the top, he's going to be the clear pivot that you can take here, the 10K range. So if you're looking for an ownership pivot and you don't want to see what Bryson's ownership is until over there on Wednesday, O'Bear would be the guy to go with right now. He didn't have the best week over there at the signature event. He's had a few other missed cuts, which are very atypical for O'Bear. So that's why the recent form, some of the modeling isn't going to be as favorable over there on him, but he's a long-term, one of the best players that we have in the world, a bomber, which fits this kind of golf course. The long iron play is some of the best that you have in all those different proximity buckets. So I don't want to completely dismiss him as a pivot play here, but for a core play, give me some Bryson DeChambeau. Just unmatched form with the driver lately, and you can see it with my modeling, #1 across the board. And something that we didn't even mention to this point that I also think is a really big deal this week is with the overseeded greens. I looked at their career baseline for these players, and the reason why we did that is these Live Tour guys don't have stats on this POA overseed anytime recently to go out there and reference. So I used the last 5 years, which gives these Live guys the last year or so that they had on the PGA Tour. And Bryson DeChambeau on that sample size is gaining 1.2 shots gained putting per round. So with the off the tee play, the putting being that elite, as long as he's about a neutral with the approach play, he could win this kind of event. The unfortunate aspect with Hard Rock Bet, that is, I'm down here in Florida, it's the only sports book that I can go out there and bet on, is that the odds are absolute horseshit at this point. So they have them at plus 700 on Hard Rock Bet. That is not a number I'd go out there and bet myself. I could boost that to plus 770, but what I'm going to do personally is I'm going to wait to see what kind of odds we get on Wednesday. And I've noticed it with Hard Rock Bet over the last few months is on big weeks like this, major championships like the Masters, also Players Championship week, they had a really crappy odds board out there on Monday, but by the time we got closer to lock, a lot of those numbers drifted in a favorable direction. So if I can get closer to plus 850, maybe even boost that to over plus 900, I would be a buyer out there on the Bryson DeChambeau outright. But regardless, over there in my DFS lineups is going to be making quite a few of my builds. It's worth noting that a Scotty, a Rory McIlroy are not automatically going to be fades for me just because I'm playing a Bryson. In fact, there's a really good chance that I play all 3 of these players up top. I think the win equity for these elite tier guys is a lot higher at this golf course with this kind of setup than what we have for any other golf course on tour. And the reason for that is that the emphasis on the off the tee play is already among the highest of all the courses out here on tour, and that's with neutral conditions around Quail Hollow. You add soft conditions on top of that, also PGA Championship rough, which they have listed at 3 inches. I have to imagine with the rain, it's going to be closer to 4 inches by the time we get out there to Thursday. It's really going to play into these elite tier bombers. So keep an eye on those 3, and the one that I'm maybe leveraging the most this week is going to be a Bryson DeChambeau. Next up, the next guy I want to bet for an outright, but once again, the number on Hard Rock is just terrible. He's at plus 1,600 over there, which is like by far the worst number in the industry. Not going to bet that sort of thing, so we'll see if we can get him at plus 2,000 or better, but it's Justin Thomas, who I love at this event. And if you saw my course breakdown already, you knew this was going to be a play based on what we were looking at, but he's $9,900, which I think is too cheap based on how he's played lately. He's better than Morikawa at this point. He's playing playing better golf than Xander Schauffele, than Aubert, up there in the $10,000 range. And he won the last time we had a PGA Championship at Quail Hollow. He won at -8, slightly different conditions. It was firmer and faster than what you have now. Now it's going to be softer, more of going out there and throwing darts. But let's look at the model rankings over here. Number 8 in the field, solid. Number 9 with the recent form ranking. If you take a look at the last 12 measured rounds, which includes a win, last week's contention performance, he's gaining in every category but off the tee. And the one thing you'd say about Justin Thomas is that he might not be the most accurate player, but he does hit the ball a long way. And if you take a look at the off the tee stats that I'm emphasizing the most, there is some regular shots gained off the tee in there, which is not going to be favorable for JT recently, but the carry distance, the ball speed, and the driving distance are all well above the PGA Tour average. And when you take a look at the proximity buckets, he's one of the best long iron players you have out there on tour. And the sneaky thing with the putting, which you may have noticed out there before, is that he's one of the best putters on this overseeded surface that you have in the world and in this field as well, gaining about a stroke per round on this overseeded putting surface. So over 4 days, if we can count on him to gain like 4 strokes putting, maybe even better than that if he has a spike putting performance on this surface, and then we get this kind of ball striking performance like we've been seeing, then lights out. Justin Thomas could win another time around a Quail Hollow. Wouldn't surprise me. I just think everything's really coming together for him. When he's not gone out there and been in the top 5, he's at least been in contention at some stage during these recent events. And it hasn't even been at great course fits. Like RBC Heritage, completely different golf course than what we have this week. And I would argue that this style Quail Hollow is a better course fit for Justin Thomas than what you had over there at the Hilton Head, Hilton Head Golf Links. So I'd much rather have a JT this week at plus 2,000 or better. That's the sort of number that I'm looking for the outright. But for the DFS standpoint, I think he will be a little bit higher owned than some of the guys around him. Like compared to a Victor Hovland, JT's going to get some steam. I'll get more steam than guys like a Brooks or a Joaquin Niemann, who, by the way, I think both of these could be low-owned value plays to consider for some exposure. John Rahm, not sure what his ownership's going to look like. I'd have to say with his form that he's most likely going to get some steam, but I don't see Justin Thomas being outrageous talk. Like something close to like 25% would really surprise me when it comes to those ownership projections. And if he's going to be closer to that like 15 to 20% range, which is kind of what I'm assuming what we're going to get for the Justin Thomas ownership numbers, then I'm going to be more than willing to play him in 35-40% of my lineups and get that leverage in my 150 max pool. So $9,900 has the really good course history, really good form going, just a lot of different reasons that he makes sense for this event. So not a surprise that he's out there towards the top end of my player pool. Before we go into the last core play, also our 3 value plays towards the bottom, just want to quickly remind you where you can find these spreadsheets for yourself, which is over there on my Patreon page. You can find a link to that down in the description of this video. And on there, everything that you see blacked out, well, is not blacked out over there for my Patreon members. They've got my entire player pool on there, all the bets that I'll be playing throughout the week, which I'm for sure going to add on top of what we talk about here, but projected ownership. You have my modeling for every single player. You have course history, recent form. This is event history because it is the PGA Championship. But all these different tabs that you see at the bottom, completely uncensored over there for my members. So make sure to check it out if you guys were wondering where to find all these projections. And yeah, with the hot run that we've been on lately, this major championship would be another one to go ahead and add on top of it. So let's go ahead, try our best out there with our exposure. And down below, if you guys want to join the team, find all these tools for your projections and for your process, go ahead and click that link. But our next core play here is going to be Tommy Fleetwood at $9,100, who I'm not betting for an outright. I am not crazy. I've seen somebody who's never won before. I'm not going to bet them to win their first event at a major. It'd be great to see. I will be rooting for them to go out there and do it. But $9,100, give me the top 5 for plus 700. So Tommy Ladd playing some fantastic golf. Last week was in contention out there for a lot of that event. And if you take a look at the last 12 measured rounds, it's the tee to green play that's getting the job done. 0.4 strokes per round off the tee, just over a third of a stroke per round with the approach play, and gaining into 2 short game categories as well. And for a well-balanced player, somebody that doesn't have a weakness like a Tommy Fleetwood, this is the exact kind of stat profile that you would have been expecting to see from him. And what I really like about him for this specific event is that his course history at Quail Hollow is excellent. He's been in contention multiple times to win at this track, and when he isn't in contention, he's finishing in the top 20, which is exactly what you're looking for from this 9K range. We once somebody that can sniff contention, doesn't necessarily have to win. Like top 5, top 10 is really the kind of performance that you're hoping for to crack that optimal lineup. And if he's plus 700 to do so, and I actually think he's value at that plus 700, then he has a lot of that equity out there for that top 5, top 10. So at $9,100, he's the kind of player that I'm jamming into lineups, and he's not really the bomber like you have with a Bryson. And JT, I wouldn't call him a bomber, but he is relatively long off the tee. Would say Fleetwood's more of that well-rounded, just stud golfer that you play at major championships. And it would be kind of crazy to bet him outright just because this is such a strong field and he's never gotten it done over here on this side of the pond. But for that top 5, top 10, he fits exactly what I'm looking for in DFS. So if you take a look at the last 24 rounds as well, I'll show you a little bit more of a sample size on Fleetwood. You can see it's the exact same kind of stat profile where he's gaining across all 4 categories, most significantly around the green, also with the approach play, which is very much so on brand for the kind of golf that he plays. He doesn't leave himself too far from the hole. And when he misses greens, he's normally hitting it to 3 to 5 feet. And when he's gaining strokes putting is when you want to take him out there in your lineups. And it's not like he's or otherworldly putter like you have with a Bryson or a JT on this surface where they're gaining over a stroke per round, but he's okay on it, right? He's about neutral over there on those overseeded greens. So $9,100, he's going to make his way into quite a few of my lineups. But now for our value plays, going a little bit further down the board, and this might be a little bit more expensive than I typically go with out here for a value play, but Patrick Reed has some course history that I just can't pass up, and out there for a top 10, I took him at plus $600, or plus 600 for that. So I put him for like 200, so we'll win just under $1,500 profit. Let's talk about this. He's gaining a stroke per round on this overseeded surface, 1.12 strokes per round to be exact, and just like a Tommy Fleetwood, he's got some elite tier course history. In fact, out of his last 4 times around Quail Hollow, he's finished top 8 3 of those 4 times. So 75% of the time cashing this sort of bet, and the history and the form over there on the live golf side is to be desired as well. He's gaining about 1.8 strokes per round over there on the live side. And if we go over to the last 12 measured rounds, you'll see exactly how it's being done. Gaining across all 4 categories. He's got a similar stat profile to a Tommy Fleetwood, and that's the kind of thing that gets a job done around here. You have to be a well-rounded golfer. You can't be somebody that's a terrible driver or get eaten alive by the rough. You can't be a terrible approach player because if you have around the green shots around Quail Hollow all day, you're going to be shooting like +8. Around the green has to be up to snuff because even the best ball strikers are still going to miss some greens. And then the putting, you have really tough green complexes out there. You're not going to find a better putter of these type of greens than a Patrick Reed. At this golf course has lit it up on these green complexes, and they're just like you have at Augusta National. Some have comped it to Augusta even. The stat profile, like the rough's a little bit different, so I don't think it's a perfect comp course or anything, hence why I didn't use it in my modeling, but it's the same type of greens. They got a lot of undulation to them. They run them very firm and fast when they can at this golf course. Not going to be firm this week, but I imagine they're going to be extremely quick out there on Thursday and Friday. So give me some Patrick Reed for that top 10, and I think it makes a lot of sense at that number, considering it's closer to plus 450 on a lot of the other major sports books. Might be chalk from the ownership angle. It's worth noting that he's going to project a lot better than some of the other players in this range. So I'd expect him to be in that 10 to 15% range. He's not going to be a low-owned play there at $8,100. Not going to be in that 7 to 10% range like you might get on a Justin Rose. Not to say I'm not going to play Rose. Rose has finished top 15 in his last 5 PGA Championships. I think he's live at that sort of ownership. But from the core play perspective, plays I'll throw out there over there on YouTube and use for some of these outright and placement bets, Patrick Reed is the kind of player that I'd prefer. And it's the form, it's the course history, it's the putting on this surface, everything really aligning for Patrick Reed. And the next play we're going to go to is a lot further down the board. So this is more of a classical value play where you're really going to save salary if you use them. And it's going to be Keith Mitchell at $6,200. So what the form is extremely favorable for, top 20 in that category. And he is one of those bombers that's good with the long iron. So more of that classical course fit that we were talking about before, where that distance and also that part of the bag, the mid to long irons, is what you want to hone in on with your plays. He's been a good par 5 scorer. And then on this overseeded surface, he's not great, but he's been about a neutral, which is kind of similar to what we had with our play over here. Second play, Tommy Fleetwood. He's about a neutral in that category. So it's not really a plus or a minus on him. But what you really like with Keith Mitchell is that he's shown us a bunch of upside. First round leaders galore, 3 of events here in 2025 where he's led after the first 18 holes, and last week he held on to it a little bit further than normal. Sometimes the second round he had blown up, it got out from the first place to like 50th. Sometimes it was round 3, and then last week was really round 4 where he went out there and blew up. $6,200, he's way too cheap for the form that he has. I think that he's going to be a very popular play in this kind of range. You're not going to overlook the number 14 model ranking play down here in that 6K range, but if he's like that 7 to 10% ownership mark where he's chalky compared to the guys around him, but he's not being owned in like 15 to 20% of lineups, that's the kind of player that I'll still use in GPPs, because it's not who you play, it's how you play them that matters out there in your lineups. So if you're somebody that's using a Keith Mitchell, just avoid some of the chalk towards the top. So for example, we know that guy like Patrick Reed might be a little bit chalky, Justin Thomas at $9,900. If you start with an O'Bear, get off of some of that chalk in the 8-9K range, and then you're getting to a player like Keith Mitchell towards the bottom, it's okay to take him in that sort of build when you've already compensated from the ownership angle. And it's not even like you have to be super extreme in terms of the compensation to get to a Keith Mitchell. 1 to 2 other spots out of your 6-player lineup being average to below average ownership, and you're okay to use a Keith Mitchell at this portion of the board. The metrics are very favorable on him, and just like some of the other plays that we talked about, the Quail Hollow history is elite. He has a 3rd place finish, also an 8th place finish around Quail Hollow. Was in contention, I believe, the 54-hole leader at one of those. So fell off on Sundays. That's kind of what Keith Mitchell has done at this point. But what if he doesn't fall off on a Sunday? What if we can get that top 10 at plus 800, which on other books, by the way, is much lower, like plus 700 or lower on a lot of these other major sports books? Give me that sort of value. Give me just a $6,200 price tag. And the shots gained metrics are also, they're not as lights out as some of the other players, but from tee to green, he's gaining strokes in all 3 categories. In fact, about 1.3 strokes per round, and over the last 24 measured rounds, he's not as stout, but still some really good stuff. About a stroke per round with the ball striking, losing around the green over that sample, but give me some ball striking down low. A lot of these players around him are sketchy in general with the form, not just over there with the ball striking stats, but really all 4 categories for a lot of these guys tend to be sketchy. He's in much better form, and it's the categories that count. It's the ball striking, the off the tee, the approach play that are the most consistent out there from event to event that he's been carrying himself for the last few months. And then the last player we're going to talk about here, our last value play at $5,800, is a top 10 that I played at plus 1,300, and that is Gary Woodland, who a few weeks ago we took as a value play, then he withdrew, so I got my money back for that bet and didn't use him in my lineups. We got that way before lock, so hopefully, and if you didn't, you better start to incorporate that into your process. You got to check the news on these players, right? You can't be locking lineups on Monday and then letting them sit there. But Gary Woodland has been a very good putter on this surface, and if you recall, half the reason we wanted to play him a few weeks ago is because we were going to be on that overseeded surface, and that's the green type that he's lit up this year. He's gained 3 to 4 shots gained at some of these events out here on this overseeded surface, and he's a long bomber. It's a really good long iron player. You've seen him have success at majors before. US Open winner at Pebble Beach. And if you take a look at the last 12 measured rounds for him, and he had to withdraw with a little bit of an injury, but apparently he's good to go now, so I feel pretty comfortable playing him. He's gaining in the 2 ball striking categories around the green, leaving a lot to be desired. But even if you go to the last 24 rounds, so you give him a large sample size, and really this is where everything should equal out, he's still gaining a bunch of strokes on approach, losing off the tee, which is surprising with how long he is in that category. But the putter has been hot as well over that 24 round sample size. So he's been very consistent, been making some cuts, getting into contention every once in a while. And at this golf course, just like a lot of the other players that we talked about, he has elite tier course history. He has multiple top 5 finishes around a Quail Hollow, a bunch of top 25s over his years, and he's got more experience at this golf course, and it's changed a lot over the years. It's going to change this year. It's 75 yards longer than what we typically have around Quail Hollow, but he has seen these greens and he's seen this property more than pretty much everyone else in the field. At least to my knowledge, he has the most experience of everyone. I think guys like Justin Rose, there's a few guys that might be close to what you have at Gary Woodland, like an Adam Scott kind of comes to mind, but he's played here like 15 times over the years, so he knows the golf course very well. He's had a lot of success over that sample size as well, and top 10 at plus 1,300, it is a little bit of a long shot, but I think he's got it within his range of outcomes. If he has a good putting week, he can gain like 3 or 4 strokes putting, have a solid ball striking week like we know he's capable of. It's Gary Woodland, future Hall of Famer most likely, especially with the ball striking stats, what we've seen. He's got at least that top 10 equity out there. And even if it's like a top 15 for DFS, that might be enough at $5,800 because down here in this range, we don't need a whole bunch to pay this off. It's not even like who you're getting here at $5,800 that matters. It's the kind of salary flexibility that it's opening up top. With a $5,800 golfer like Gary Woodland, it gives you the salary to fit in a Bryson, to fit in a Scotty if you want to. And if you want to go double stud, like maybe Scotty and a Bryson or a Rory and a Bryson DeChambeau, you're going to have a couple of those 5K guys to go out there and make that kind of lineup work. So it's not just who you're getting down low that matters. It's the salary flexibility that it's opening up as well, which is why I like talking about these value plays here in this preview. We could mention, some of the outright bets that I just like. A lot of people like to focus on that side of the board, but these plays down low are sometimes even more important than the guys up top because of the lineup constructions that they open up. So this 5K range has a lot of legit players down here. During our preview on Wednesday, I'm sure I'll have even more for you guys when it comes to the low-end gems, but there's legit golfers down here all over the place. Like, for example, a Glover, I know the form's not great, but he's a legit guy. Tom Hoagie, he projects pretty well in my projections. Tom McKibben, he's been a legit stud on the Live Tour. I know a lot of people probably haven't seen him often. He was on the DP World Tour before joining Live. He's also long off the tee, could be worth a few looks. Highsmith's a winner on tour this year. Nicholas Norgard-Moller, an extremely long player. You're going to have the salary to work with to be able to spend up and take those kind of guys. So Gary Woodland, worth a few looks out there in lineups and the kind of player that I'll be getting over the field on. That's all I've got for the DFS and betting preview. Before you're hopping out of here, go ahead, smash that like button if you guys haven't already, and also subscribe to the channel so you guys don't miss any of the content to come. That'll of course include our Wednesday live streams, which the first one will be at 7 p.m. Eastern time. That's over there on the Ship It Nation YouTube, where we'll be going through all the DFS stuff out there before lock. That'll be weather, that'll be some strategy, some ownership over there towards the top end of the board, as well as any questions that you have on that side. And then at 8 p.m. Eastern time is when we're going to go through the prop and betting side. So that'll be for underdog and prize picks, any matchup bets over on the sports books, outright bets I'm adding there last second, any of that, that'll be at 8 p.m. here on this YouTube channel. So you don't want to miss any of that. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, also over there to the Ship It Nation YouTube channel, so you guys can catch all of those live streams. And for rounds 2 through 4 for Showdown and on the prop and betting side for rounds 2 through 4, we're doing the same kind of setup. So it'll be the Showdown live stream there on Ship It Nation, the prop and betting live streams for those last few rounds over on my YouTube channel. So we're delineating it that way, making sure the prop stuff is over here, the betting, the fantasy side is over on their channel. Simplify things a little bit. So best of luck out there with all the exposure that you guys are getting to. And for a chance to earn a free month on my Patreon page as well, go ahead and give me your winner for this week. And as long as they are at least 30 to 1 out there on all the major sports books, do some line shopping, right? Make sure you're not giving me to somebody that's like 15 or 20 to 1 to go out there and win. They will not count for this contest. But if you can give me the winner and they're at least 30 to 1, a little bit more of a long shot, you will win a free month access out there to my Patreon page. That, of course, is where I have all my projections, my spreadsheets for every single event, not only for main slate, but also for Showdown and rounds 2 through 4. I've got projections, my player pool process, also all the extra analysis that I'm posting in my Discord channel over there for my members. And for it, free of charge, all you have to do is give me your long shot play of the week out there for an outright. And if you win, you go ahead and get that free month access. But for access right now, go ahead and check out the link in the description of the video to go out there and join. It's not going to cost you an arm and a leg to join my website. $25 gives you all the golf stuff I do. That's the prop stuff and all the DFS sheets. If you just want all the DFS sheets I do, it's only $15 a month. So if you want access right now for all the stuff we have for the PGA Championship, great time to join, great time of the year for golf. We got the US Open out there next month as well. Check out the link in the description. But that's all I've got, guys. Appreciate your support in the channel as per usual. Best of luck with all the exposure that you guys are getting to. And I'll see you guys for the live streams over there on Wednesday.